What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Hot Stove right here on the channel and on X as well as. Give me 1 second, guys. Sorry about that. Big echo. All right, there we go. I'm sorry about that. I have my YouTube channel on for some reason. Sorry about that, guys. So, welcome back to the Hot Stove Show, guys. As Chris just mentioned in the chat, he is currently stuck in traffic due to an accident. Unfortunately, he's probably not going to be able to make it, and that's unfortunate, but again, stay on his channel. It's not a big deal. Stay on his channel or my channel. It doesn't really matter at this point. So just hit that like button on both channels. And we'll just get into the topics that we were going to put together for the both of us. But hey, at the end of the day, Met fans need to realize that this is turning over a new leaf for this Mets organization. When you blow up the core of this franchise, you got a lot of explaining to do, even though some people might agree with the different direction of a core because the core has been a losing core. You haven't won enough. You haven't won anything. And at some point, you got to change it. David Stearns is doing that. If you agree or disagree with him about that, then that's your opinion. You're allowed to have that opinion. But right now, we can't do anything about Alonso. He's not on the Mets no more. Diaz or Nimmo. You can't do anything about that anymore. They are on different teams. Now you got to go in a different direction. And the only thing that we are hoping for David Stearns is to go in the right direction and build a championship team. If he doesn't do that, he'll be fired in probably 2 years. That's probably what's going to happen. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. We'll talk about everything that has been reported over the last couple of days. The news that just came out, and it wasn't supposed to be a topic, but it happened in like a half hour ago, is that reports are coming out that the fact that the Mets are stealing one of the top international free agents on the international market in Wandy Asigan. He was committed to the New York Yankees as one of the top international free agents, and he decommitted to the Yankees and is now signing with the New York Mets for $3.8 million. The international signing period is January 15th, so he's not officially signed, so he could probably decommit again if he wanted to, but it was clearly most likely money that the Mets offered more of, and that's the only reason. I don't see why he would just decommit to one team and go to another, considering the fact that you don't see this often, especially from the Yankees to the Mets when it comes to the international free agent. So he is a shortstop. He is 16 years old. We're not talking about this kid being anything as of yet, but he is one of the top international free agents on the market. That's always cool. That's how you don't have to worry about where you draft in the draft in years, because the Mets, with being over the luxury tax and being over the threshold, they lose a good number of draft picks in one draft just by, you can have the first pick, but you're going to drop many spots because of where the Mets are payroll-wise. So you build your farm system, if you're the New York Mets, if you're a big market team, by signing international free agents. And the Mets looking like they stole a really good international free agent prospect. Hopefully he becomes something, but he's only 16 years old. Hopefully he becomes a phenom, and he's up in 3 years when he's 18, 19 years old, and that would be great. So that is something that you just have to look at and take it for what it's worth right now. It's not going to help this team now, but it just broke, and it is news. It is a potential big signing for the international market for the New York Mets. Again, when you got that international bonus pool money, you can use it, and the Mets used it. I don't know how they did it. Were they talking to the kid? I don't know how all these rules work in the international market. We just don't know. But we do know that he is switching jerseys from one New York team to the other, and we'll see how that goes in the years to come. Hopefully he becomes a star, and that would be great. And he is the Dominican player. Again, 16 years old, shortstop, and that's what we are right now, because I don't really care at this point. It doesn't make me excited or not. I'm not going to say, haha, New York Yankees. I just don't care. He means nothing to the 2026 Mets, probably even the 2027 or 2028 Mets. So at this point, for the prospect huggers who love prospects, they'll go a little bit crazy. And that's just the way it is. But it is cool. It is a $3.8 million international signing, and that is a big deal for the international market. So with that said, welcome to the Hot Stove Show once again, as we are talking all the news that we need to talk about. Everything is up in the air right now. You heard a lot of news where the Padres Mets trade was picking up steam. We heard a lot of names on the Padres side, not really many on the Mets side, and we'll get into that as well. We'll get into the Japanese players that Murakami is going to be only got a couple of more days, the 22nd of this month, to choose a team, or he goes back to Japan. Same thing goes for Amai, and Okamoto is a guy that a couple days after January is when they have to sign with a team. But we are going to start here with the signing of Luke Weaver, 2 years, $22 million. As everybody knows, I did a live yesterday on the breaking news. Again, not saying this is a great move or an even, shocking move, because the Mets seem to sign every Yankee that's out there. But it's not a bad signing. He was terrible in the second half with the New York Yankees. He does have decent stuff. He's not going to be the closer. At the moment, he looks like he could be the setup man, but I'm not really. It depends on what the Mets are looking for when it comes to matchups, right? Brooks Raley could be a setup man at one point. It could be Weaver. When Minter does come back, it could be him. Brazaban. It could be a Dylan Ross, who is a possibility for the bullpen as well, and seeing what the Mets do with the bullpen as well in the free agent market or possibly the trade market. There's a lot to, predict or, cut up and see what they're going to get overall for the bullpen. Right now, it looks like Devin Williams is going to be the closer. I'm not excited about that either. But 2 years ago, he was one of the best closers in baseball. It's not like his stuff fell off the face of the map, of the world. If it's not, his stuff was there. Maybe it was just location. I don't know. Maybe it was pitch selection. I don't know if Devin Williams called his pitches or the Yankees from the dugout called his pitches. I don't know. But he wasn't good. Regardless of who called the pitches, he threw the pitch. And you just hope that he's better. He's 2024 Devin Williams than 2025 Devin Williams. And you hope, the second year in a row being in New York, he'll get a little bit more comfortable and be more comfortable in Queens. That would be nice. But right now, I'm not excited about the bullpen. I think the bullpen, we have names in here that could do a good job. The bullpen was a disaster in the first half and the second half. In my opinion, the bullpen was a disaster, not based on the names, especially in the first half. It was a starting pitching that didn't do their job going deeper into games, where you had to use 4, 5, 6 bullpen arms every single day to get through a game. And at some point, they're going to break down. At some point, teams are going to continue to see the same pitchers in the bullpen, and they're going to be expecting certain pitches, and that's when the bullpen falls apart. And in the second half, David Stearns tried to address it at the trade deadline. Not a lot of people were mad about the additions because they were good names. They just didn't do the job. And that's when you blame the players. But I also blame David Stearns for the fact that he didn't get starting pitching in here, at least reliable starters that can give you a little bit of length to help out your bullpen. Because even the guys that came in the second half at the trade deadline, and Rogers, Soto, and Helsley, they were so overused as well. And you're putting them in different roles, especially Helsley. Not an excuse, but to assume that Helsley is just going to be comfortable in the 7th, the 8th, the 6th is not always possible with a closer. And you just never know. So it was a risk, but nobody hated that trade. Everybody thought it was a good trade. It just didn't work out. But on top of that, David Stearns allowed to be desperate for bullpen arms at the trade deadline and sent, 12 minor leaguers in those deals for all rentals, and all of them are on different teams now and not with the New York Mets. So not that I feel bad for David Stearns, but it does suck. He needs to do a better job. This is why I always say the offseason, you should sign, trade, and bring in guys that are less of a question mark. So when you get to the trade deadline, you don't have all these holes to worry about. You can't go into the season having so many holes and think that you're not going to have more holes come the trade deadline. It just doesn't make sense. Luke Weaver is a solid bullpen arm. He's not great. I think he is a good addition. He does have good stuff. We'll see if he can turn around what he was doing in the first half, which was pretty good. It was the second half that was the problem. We don't know with the pitch selection or, what went about with that. Was he tipping pitches or whatever? But you just hope he becomes better in a Mets uniform, and that's something you just have to hope for. So once again, guys, CP was supposed to join us, but he got stuck in DC traffic with an accident on the road. He didn't get into an accident. I'm just saying there was an accident on the road that caused him not to be here. So it was going to be both of us, but it's only me right now talking about all these fun topics. Me and Chris will get together at some point for a hot stove again. It's just timing, scheduling, and holidays that cause us to not be on shows together right now. So Luke Weaver, 2 years, $22 million. It's not, it's not a breaking the bank or anything like that. It's a solid addition. We'll see what the Mets do with possible trade or sign-ins for the bullpen that's coming. I think you got to get at least another bullpen arm or two, depending on if that's high-end bullpen arms or low-end bullpen arms. You still need guys that are very reliable. I think that's the problem with the New York. Last year, the Mets didn't have a lot of reliable pitchers in the bullpen or the starting rotation. And it just became a dumpster fire. Right? It didn't matter what the Mets did offensively. It didn't matter. Yeah, the Mets weren't good in the first couple of months of the season offensively with runners in scoring position. But it was most of the season where the Mets just were impossible to win games because the starters basically were always giving up runs to have this team come from behind. That is not easy to do on an everyday basis. I don't care how good your offense is. When you're constantly behind, you're going to press. You're going to have to score more runs. And that's not easy to do every game. It would be nice where you can win a 2-1 ball games. The Mets didn't win low-scoring games. It was a huge problem. If they didn't win high-scoring games, they weren't winning at all. And the big culprit was the pitching on both ends, the bullpen and the starting pitching. Hopefully Luke Weaver does well with that. And yeah, I think who was the one that said that? Patrick Weaver ERA was 0.73 until May 26th until he got hurt. Yeah, he did get hurt. So, that could be a cause of what happened. Maybe it was different arm angle because of his injury, whatever it was. But he does have good stuff. That's a fact. So we'll see, right? It's very hard to predict bullpens. You can get the best names out there, but it does not mean that your bullpen's going to be good. Bullpens are fickle. Each individual bullpen arm could be a hit or miss. Somebody who was great last year can be very bad this year. Bullpens are something that it's basically you throw something against the wall, hope it sticks. That's basically what it is with bullpens. Obviously we're going to know the better names, the bigger names, but that doesn't mean you're going to have a good bullpen. Look at the Dodgers. How many different guys did they sign last year that was top of the market? They had one of the worst bullpens in baseball. Now they found a way to win the World Series. That was because they had 14 different starters that they used in the bullpen when they needed them in the playoffs. A guy like Roki Sasaki, Tyler, all these guys that they needed in the bullpen, they used basically starters for that. And not everybody has that luxury to do so. So when we talk about there's many different ways to win championships, there is. The Dodgers showed you. They had to make sure they didn't get deep into that bullpen where they were one of the worst bullpens in baseball. You got to use other guys, and they had to use their starters to do so. And what helped is that their starters actually went deep into ball games in the playoffs. They were dominant. And you didn't have to rely on 4 or 5 innings from your bullpen. And that saved the Dodgers. Let's be honest about that. All they did was score runs and starting pitching was really good. They didn't have to use their bullpen to that point. So, unfortunately, I don't know if the Mets are going to be that type of team, to be quite honest with you. I don't know what the hell is going on with the starting rotation with the New York Mets. I don't know what David Stern's plan is for the rotation. I don't trust him. But as I said many times, I think the Mets need they need definitely one top starting pitcher, and they need somebody who is probably a solid number 3 just to make me feel better about this rotation, because you can't rely on Nolan McLean to be the main guy. You just can't do it. He is not proven. I don't care what anybody says. If you want to say that Nolan McLean is proven, then you're just not paying attention. He had 9 starts last year, and we're already put him on this pedestal. Don't do that, because if he takes a step back, this season is going out the window. You can't survive with no top pitcher once again. You just can't do it. You need reliable starting pitching. The Mets have none. Nolan McLean isn't proven yet. He has great potential, great stuff, great demeanor on the mound, and he's a badass on the mound. But that doesn't ultimately mean he's going to be a great pitcher. We hope he is. That's the hope, that he is. If he is, great. But if he takes a little bit of a step back, who do you trust in this rotation at this current moment on December 18th? Kodai Senga? He quit on this team. David Peterson fell off the face of the earth in the second half. Clay Holmes? Does anybody trust him coming back after 170 plus innings and not getting hurt? Because that's a strong possibility. Who else do you trust? Brandon Sproat? He's not completely old there yet. Jonah Togg's not going to be in this rotation. So the Mets need to get a top starter. I don't care where they get it. Free agent market, trade market, you got to get a top starter in here. Give me a top starter and pair him with Nolan McLean, and I'll feel a little bit better about this rotation. Let Nolan McLean develop into the pitcher we hope he's going to become. But don't put all the pressure on him, because if he does not do well and takes a step back, the Mets are in trouble. And I don't want to be here in the middle of May talking about this rotation is in trouble, because that is a bad job. And again, it's December 18th. There's a lot of guys out there the Mets still can get, but you need to deal with the pitching. The pitching was the detriment of this, the downfall of this team this year. Everybody can talk about the offense all they want. The Mets scored enough runs. Yes, they scored less than what they did in 2024, but we all know the Mets pitching was really good in 2024. That was a big reason why they went on that run. But you could score 5 runs a ball game. That was what the average for the Mets were at the end of the season. That should be enough runs to win more ball games, not 83 games. The pitching on both ends were disgusting. It was embarrassing. That can't happen again. Classic, how you doing? David McLean is going to be like Scooble. Yeah, okay. Let's hold our horses with that. All right. That's an embarrassment to Scooble. All right. Don't put Nolan McLean on any pedestal. He is nobody yet. He isn't. He's a guy that has a tremendous amount of talent and possibilities, and you hope he's going to be great. But don't act like he is, because he's not. It's silly to me. It really is. I just don't understand why people are going to throw Nolan McLean to be this guy yet. He's not an ace. He's not an ace yet. And you know what? David Stearns should know this. If he believes in him, great. But you don't need to put him at the top of this rotation and say, okay, he's our ace. That means you didn't do your job in this offseason to acquire via trade or free agency a top starter. It's not. There's guys out here to get. Like, it's not like the free agent market and the trade market is bare and there's nothing out there to get. There is. So if David Stearns has Nolan McLean being our number 1 pitcher, then he didn't do his job. It's just a fact. And David, you can say whatever you want about Nolan McLean. He's not an ace. All right. That's just stupid. It's dumb. All right. 9 starts doesn't put him in the Hall of Fame. Doesn't make him the Mets. You know why he's the Mets ace? Because everybody else sucks. And it's not even close. And that's just sad. And that's why the Mets need to do things. So Luke Weaver, $22 million over 2 years to add to the bullpen. And we will see what the Mets do next when it comes to the bullpen for the New York Mets. Next topic here is we're going to be talking about This is another report is that, and this doesn't excite me at all, but I think this leans towards the free agent market, not the trade market. I think people got overly concerned that they're saying, oh my God, the Mets are going to be most aggressive for mid-tier starting pitching. That's the free agent market. If that doesn't mean the free agent market and it just means in general, then I have a real problem with this. This is just stupid. It's just absolutely stupid. It makes no sense if this is in general. But I think what this report means is the free agent market. I don't think the Mets are going to sign Framber Valdez, even though they should, to a 6-year deal. I don't even think Framber Valdez is getting it. I think he's having a hard time getting it, is the reason why he hasn't signed yet. I think he's probably looking at a 3-4 year deal. Maybe somebody desperate like the Orioles, which the Mets should be desperate, but David Stearns never, does anything in a desperate way. So that's out of the question. I can see the Orioles going to a 5th year to get Framber Valdez. I think Framber Valdez would have signed already if he was going to get a 6-year deal. I think he's having a hard time getting a 5-year deal. Maybe the Mets have more of a chance if it's a 3-4 year deal for Framber Valdez. Maybe we'll have a better chance with the high AAV. We'll see. But I don't think it's going to happen. So when it comes to the free agent market, what are we talking about here? Lucas Giolito. We heard rumors today that the Mets could be interested in Chris Bassett, our good old friend Chris Bassett. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. That is, I'm okay with that. I put Michael King in that mid-tier as well. I know me and Chris disagree with Michael King, but he's not a top starter. Michael King is not a top starter. He's had one good season and he had an injury-riddled year and somewhat of a tough year. I think he could be good, but I'm not putting him at the top of the rotation. He's not a 1 or a number 2, in my opinion. So Michael King's a mid-tier to me. And it seems like the Mets are kind of priced themselves out, or King priced themselves out of what the Mets were willing to give. So when it comes to mid-tier, it's guys like Lucas Giolito. It's guys like Michael King. It's guys like that. That doesn't excite me at all. But if it's for a middle to back end rotation, I'm okay with that. But you need a top starter. You can do whatever the hell you want at the back end of this rotation. But give me Nolan McLean with a top starter, and then we can have a conversation about, okay, this rotation has a reliable top guy at the rotation. We hope Nolan McLean is the guy that we seen last year and gets better. Then that just makes it that much easier to put a rotation together. And then your number 3 can be whoever you just signed. If it's Michael King, Lucas Giolito, guys like that could be a solid number 3, but probably a number 4. Then you got David Peterson. You want to talk about Kodai Senga? Go ahead. I don't think this guy should be on this team. Brandon Stroke, guys like that. Clay Holmes. I'm okay with that. But the mid-tier annoys me if that's the only thing you're going to go after, which I still think the Mets are going to make a trade for a top-of-the-line starting pitcher. And we'll debate that in the next couple of topics. But when it comes to mid-tier, that's not exciting to me. You always need those mid-tier type of rotation arms, the guys that are in the middle of the rotation, middle to back end of the rotation. Those guys are important. If you're going to get mid-tier guys, I need guys that give me innings. Because the Mets didn't have that either. They didn't have an ace. They had nobody that was reliable and gave you innings. Clay Holmes did for the most part, but he was kind of a 5-inning pitcher for a while until later in the year when he went one time 6 innings and then went 7 innings one time. That was good, but we need guys at the back end of the rotation that can give you innings. They're not going to be the best guys in the rotation. They're not going to give you, 7 innings of 1-run ball, but they'll give you 6 innings of maybe 3-4-run ball, but they'll give you that innings that you need to protect your bullpen. You need at least 1 or 2 guys that can give you innings in the back end of this rotation. Hopefully those mid-tier guys can be those guys, wherever they may be. But I don't want mid-tier guys that are constantly injured over the last couple of years. And you're going to tell me these guys are part of our rotation that we're going to trust and be reliable. That's a joke. It really is. Don't give me a guy who's been injured, especially last year, and think that he's going to be a reliable starter. Like, that's just more hope that we don't need. We need reliability. Reliability is what killed this team last year because there was none in the rotation, and that's where it needs to change. So mid-tier, your guess is my best guess. It's probably Lucas Giolito, Michael King, guys like that. You just need guys that can give you innings. And I think that's the most important thing right now, other than a top starter. So, turning over to the outfield or first base, whatever you want to call it, with Cody Bellinger. The Mets' pursuit of Cody Bellinger. I don't know where the Mets are with this. I really don't, guys. I'm trying to figure out what the Mets are trying to really do here, because I'm okay with Michael. Wow. I'm okay with Cody Bellinger. I'm absolutely okay with Cody Bellinger because, again, Pete Alonso's not walking through that door. Brandon Nimmo's gone. Pete Alonso's gone. So everybody's going to say, well, go get Kyle Tucker. I don't think the Mets are going to give 10 years of Kyle Tucker. I just don't see it. I just don't see it at all. And that's why Cody Bellinger makes the most sense for this Mets team, because of the fact that he fits this team like a glove. He can play first. He can play any outfield position, and with the holes that the Mets have, center, left field, first base. What the Mets can do here is sign Cody Bellinger, and now you can say, okay, should I go get a first baseman? Should I go get another outfielder on the trade market? It doesn't matter. You can get whatever you've seen, whatever you think you can get is okay. Let's say the Mets get a first baseman. Let's say Okamoto or Murakami is the guy. Great. Now you got a first baseman. You fill a hole in the outfield, either center or left field for Cody Bellinger. And then if you still have Carson Bench by the end of the offseason and when spring training starts, because you didn't trade him, he can be one of your outfield holes that you can fill there. That is what you should need to do. And yes, David, I agree with you. Luis Robert and Bellinger, you solve your outfield. And I'm not saying Bellinger is going to produce 30-plus home runs or Luis Robert's going to be something that we haven't seen at the White Sox. But what you do in the outfield is have Cody Bellinger and Luis Robert Jr. as really good defenders in center field. I think Luis Robert needs to change the scenery. I'm not saying he's going to turn into the great player everybody expected him to be, but I think he'll be fine. Now, fine is somebody that's probably going to bat 240. I don't think that's exciting. I'm an average guy, but nobody's really an average guy anymore in baseball. I think he can hit you 15 to 20 home runs, maybe more. I don't know. But I'll go between 15 to 20 home runs. That is something the Mets really didn't get in center field. They didn't get a lot of power, if at all, in center field. Cody Bellinger will hit you 20 home runs. Let's say 20 to 25. So that's around 35 to 40 home runs right there with those two guys, depending on what you do with first base. I think the Mets need to get either Murakami or Okamoto. I would like to go with Okamoto more, only because I like his defensive capabilities, and he does have a good bat. He hits for average. He hit 30 home runs, but I'm not expecting him to hit 30 home runs. Let's say 20 home runs. That's another 20 home runs you add to this lineup, along with Lindor and Juan Soto, and we could talk about Brett Baty and Francisco Alvarez. That can help this team. Simeon's another guy that can hit 20 home runs. And we'll be okay with that because that's what we have. Yeah, I don't see where Mauricio's getting a spot, to be quite honest with you. You know, Brett Baty's going to be a third baseman. He earned it. He's going to get it. Just like Vientos earned it in 2024 and got the opportunity in 2025. Brett Baty took that job. And Brett Baty deserves to be the third baseman unless you go out and get Alex Bregman. Then it's a different story. But you know, everybody wants to keep these prospects. I see David in the chat talking about Mauricio, Jonah Tong, this guy, that guy. All these prospects can't play, right? We already got these guys at the major league level. We got Acuna, Mauricio, Vientos, Baty. All these guys are not playing. Where is Vientos playing? Jorge Polanco is probably going to be your DH. Vientos is not a first baseman. He's not a good first baseman. I don't want him at first base. Where's Mauricio playing? He ain't playing third, second, or short. So Mauricio's out of the question. Acuna, same thing. These guys can't all sit on the bench and be bench players. It just doesn't make sense at all. So when it comes to Cody Bellinger, the Mets need to get him. That's it. He is one of the better. He's a one of the better free agents on the market for your outfield, or depending on what the Mets want to do with him. But he just makes sense for the Mets. You can put him in any position you have a hole right now and go out and get somebody else to fill another hole on your roster. Like, again, Jeff Kent, seriously? You want to talk about Kelenic for Diaz and Cano? That kind of worked in the Mets' favor when it came to Diaz. It's not really, like, stop worrying about the past. The past has nothing to do with the here and now or the future. It just doesn't. Right? If we can get a guy in here that can help this team now and in the foreseeable future, great. But I'm sick and tired of, oh, this guy's untouchable. There is nobody untouchable except for Nolan McLean. Carson Bench isn't untouchable. If it's for the right piece, you trade Carson Bench. Same thing, you trade Jet Williams and Ryan Clifford and Tong or Sprout. Elian Pena, it does not matter. We got to stop hugging these goddamn prospects. This prospect core, there's too many of the same positions that are just jamming up the positions. There's a log jam here. You got to get rid of some of them. We don't have to hold on to all of our prospects. This is the problem with Met fans. They're so locked on these prospects, and it burns you. You can't stop. You can't have all these guys in your farm system. You cannot have all these guys here. It does not make sense. It just doesn't. It just does not make sense. It's stupid. It really is. You got too many shortstops and second basemen in this farm system that you still got Lindor here for God knows how many years. Simeon's here for the next couple. Where are all these guys playing? Let's say Carson Bench is going to be our future center fielder. Okay, so that takes out how many guys? Where's Jet Williams playing now? Where's Ryan Clifford playing? David, it's 40 years the Mets haven't won a World Series. They've tried prospects. David Wright, Jose Reyes failed. DeGrom, right? Matz. These guys, we tried this. Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo. Did we all forget those guys? Jeff McNeil. We've tried it. It failed. Why do we act like all of a sudden that Nimmo, McNeil, and Alonso weren't the staples of this organization through our farm system? It did not work. It didn't work. We lost. We continue to lose. We're a losing organization with the homegrown talent. I'm not saying to not use some homegrown talent, but you know what? Beatty's homegrown talent. Alvarez is homegrown talent. Right now, it looks like Benj, if he doesn't get traded, is going to be part of this team. Most likely, Nolan McLean's going to be in this rotation, obviously. Brandon Sproat has an opportunity to make this rotation. So there's more prospects that are coming on. But you have to put them together with proven talent. I don't see prospects all over the diamond and the outfield that are winning championships here. You need to have proven talent in here. Not saying you can't use some of these prospects. You can. But you know what? Acuna and Mauricio hurt each other together. Same thing goes for Vientos Beatty. Same thing goes for Jet Williams, Ryan Clifford. Where are all these guys playing? There's not enough room for these guys. You got to choose. David Stearns' job is to choose the prospects that he believes is going to help this team now and in the future. You got to choose guys that you're willing to trade to bring in proven talent in here. If you don't do that, you're wasting years of the guys you paid all this money to. It makes no sense. Why waste the prime years of Lindor? Why waste the prime years of Juan Soto? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's stupid. Why do we act like Lindor has 30 years left, like 15 years left of this team, of his prime years? He doesn't. Maybe 3, if we're lucky. You can't waste those years. There's no time to be wasting here. Don't tell me about patience. Patience is somebody, that's a loser mentality. And you know what? Met fans have developed this loser mentality that is ridiculous. It's stupid. It's time to win. And if David Stearns doesn't get that, his ass should be fired too. It's a joke. It's absolutely a joke. This fan base has become a loser mentality. This is what they become. Too many. You know, because Pete Alonso won all these championships with the Mets. Brandon Nimmo, Edwin Diaz, that's been here 6-7 years. Jeff McNeil, these guys are losers. Don't give them all the credit when things are good, but blame everybody else when things are bad. It's the dumbest thing. It's absolutely stupid what's going on. It just doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense. It's a waste of time. Keep on talking about wasting people's time and wasting years of their prime. I don't know why. I don't know who's banning people. I do apologize. I don't know what the hell's going on here. But I see people getting banned and I have no idea why. I have no idea what's going on. No idea. So Dolo, David, I do apologize. I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know. Right now I can't change it. Not right now. I can't change it right now. I just have to do it after the show. So David, Dolo, I do apologize. I don't know who's moderating right now. I don't see why they would. You guys didn't say anything wrong. We disagree, but that doesn't mean nothing. So I do apologize. I don't know what's going on, but I will put you back on. Unfortunately, you guys are stuck on on the show right now, so I do apologize for that. But yeah, somebody's banning. I don't know if people are reporting them. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they said something in the chat that I missed that banned them. I don't know. So I do apologize for that. Dolo, David, don't worry. I'll have you back, guys, on the show probably the next show. Right now, I can't do anything unless I log off and go on to my YouTube platform and do that. So I do apologize for that. I'm just looking like I'm talking to you guys and I see people getting banned. I'm like, I don't even have my hand on the mouse. I'm like, sorry about that. I do apologize for that. But again, I don't care if you guys disagree with me. I'm not gonna ban you. It's sports. We're supposed to disagree. So ultimately, Cody Bellinger makes sense. Right? And especially if you sign Cody Bellinger, like it just takes it's less of a spot for some of these prospects. Why you need to trade some of them. As I said last trade deadline, when Mauricio, Acuna, Beatty, and Vientos were basically two of the guys were starting, the other two were on the bench. It didn't make sense. You were not helping their development. They weren't getting at bats. They were just sitting there collecting dust. They were pinch runners and defensive replacements that doesn't do anything for their development. You could say it kind of helped the team, but it really didn't. It was just stupid. The roster construction sucked. That's why I said at the trade deadline, two of these guys need to go. David Stearns and his indecisive problems, where he does not have a decisive bone in his body. He needs to decide what he's going to do with these guys. Everybody can't be here. It doesn't work. You don't have a 40-man roster that you can stick in the dugout. It doesn't work like that. You got 26 guys. You got to choose some that you're willing to use as assets and others that you think can help this team short and long term. That's it. It's impossible to keep all these guys and think that they're all going to play and all going to be here and all going to be successful. It's Stearns' job to determine who to keep and who to not keep and use as assets for proven guys to come in here. So I don't know. And I do apologize once again, Dolo, David, if you're still on here. I know you can't comment, but you can probably still watch. I do apologize. I don't know what the hell happened. I just started looking at my comment section and I just see people getting banned. I'm not sure. I don't think you guys say anything bad. You just disagree, and that's fine. But I do apologize for that. So unfortunately, you probably guys can't come back and comment today, but hopefully you stick and watch. So I do apologize with this. unfortunately. So Cody Bellinger should be a New York Met. Will that happen? I don't know. The Mets are serious contenders, supposedly. Reportedly, they are. It seems like it's going to – I know somebody said in the comments, I forgot who it was, but said the Giants could be suitors for Cody Bellinger. Kind of makes sense, right? But probably the Mets and the Yankees are probably the most serious right now is for Cody Bellinger. We'll see what happens. Again, I'm not confident in anybody that is going to get a long-term deal for the New York Mets because David Stearns is immune to signing guys more than 3 years, and I just don't trust him with that. So we'll see how it goes. All right, so let's talk about this Padres possibility once again. We haven't heard much over the last couple of days. Last week, it started to, especially in the weekend, we started to hear so many different rumors. We started to hear Padre names with Pivetta, Miller, a couple of bullpen arms. We heard Xander Bogaerts, just so many names. But we really haven't heard anything with what would be going back in a Padres trade from the New York Mets end. We haven't really heard that. But if Mason Miller is involved, and let's say it's only Mason Miller, it's going to cost you. And that is why we're starting to hear the Mets taking on a bad contract. We heard about Xander Bogaerts. Maybe it'll be a Nick Pivetta. That is not a bad contract, but it's kind of a situation where the Padres seem to not mind giving them in a trade for whatever reason. I don't know, but it's their problem, not ours. I think it's going to be very hard for David Stearns to give up the prospect capital for Mason Miller on its own. I think David Stearns is asking for a bad contract back. So he doesn't have to give maybe 3 guys for Mason Miller. And it might take 3 prospects for Mason Miller. The guy's a top closer, an electric arm, got years of control left. It's going to cost you. And I don't know if David Stearns has the balls to actually give up 3 prospects for a closer. Because again, another reason why you should have just signed Diaz and stopped being a baby and basically screw yourself in negotiations because you left the door open to do what the Dodgers did. So it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. I'm hoping they can get Miller and Pivetta in a package. Then you could probably see giving up 2 prospects, maybe a starting pitcher, maybe Brandon Sproat or Jonah Tong, and another top prospect. I'd be willing to do that because you solve 2 problems. You solve the back end of your bullpen, and you add a really solid arm to your rotation. I'm not calling Pivetta a number 1. He's definitely not. He can be a number 2. I would say probably a pretty decent number 2, but he's definitely a great number 3. And you can probably consider him a solid 2. But that's the only way I can see a deal like that gets done. I just don't see Mason Miller on its own, the Mets or David Stearns willing to do it. I just don't, unfortunately. So we'll have to see if this is going to pick up some steam again. And when you hear all these names and people are like, why aren't David Stearns making a deal? Well, when it's specifically for the names that we've heard, and it might not just be Miller and Pivetta or Miller Bogaerts. It can be 3 or 4 guys. And that takes time to develop. Pay salary, money going back and forth, which way, physicals. I mean, it could take this deal could be done. And it what's weird, and we know this with the Mets now, when things get quiet about certain things or certain trades possibilities, all of a sudden it happens out of nowhere. Like the Devin Williams signing happened out of nowhere. The Luke Weaver signing came out of nowhere. The Brandon Nimmo trade, we knew he was on the available trade list, but nobody thought he would approve a trade. And it happened out of nowhere. So when it comes to things getting quiet with all the reports we've heard about the Mets and Padres trying to come together on the deal for multiple players, one, it takes time because of all the things I just mentioned. And also, when it starts getting quiet, and it is getting towards the holiday season, Christmas and all that, and holidays, over the next couple of days, and I wouldn't be shocked if something happens because it got quiet quickly. Like, we really haven't heard anything about the Mets and Padres since the weekend. And it just stopped getting reported. What that tells me is that when David Stearns starts to do something, all of a sudden, no rumors get out or leaked from the Mets end. Because all the leaks we heard has been on the Padres end, from Padres reporters, Padres radio host, and the Padres really, and even Preller talked about that there's not many people that are not untouchable on their roster. So that is something that you have to look at as well. When you hear Preller talk about it, you hear beat reporters for the Padres and radio hosts for San Diego Sports Radio talk about it, it's been a lot on their end. And we haven't really heard anything on the Mets end. We heard a couple of Mets reporters, beat reporters talk about the possibility of a trade, but they're getting their information from sources from the Padres. They're not really getting it from the internal part of the Mets. So now that it's quiet, I expect a trade to go down with the Mets and the Padres. There's just way too much smoke for something not to happen. And we'll just have to wait and see. It could be. I think this is going to be I really don't want it to be the big trade for the New York Mets this offseason. Because if it is the biggest trade for the Mets this offseason, then that means Skubal's out of the question, in my opinion. And Pivetta is nice, but I don't think it's enough. Now, if you throw Michael King or a guy like that in the rotation as well with Pivetta and Nolan McLean, I guess you could call it a solid 1-2-3. It's not a great 1-2-3, but it's a solid 1-2-3. You could do a lot worse than Pivetta, McLean, and King as your top three, and then you could throw Peterson, Holmes, Sproat, Senga if he's still here, and we'll look at it that way. So unfortunately, we just have to hope that something happens because we have not seen David Stearns sign a big free agent. I don't want to hear about Alonso. We know that was Steve Cohen. It wasn't Juan Soto because Steve Cohen got involved. If it was up to David Stearns last year, Pete Alonso would have never been a Met. And I do truly believe that when it comes to Juan Soto, it wasn't David Stearns at all. It was all Steve Cohen. David Stearns has not made a big signing yet, nor has he made a big trade, a blockbuster trade yet with prospects. Until he does that, I have no faith that he will. And that is where I concern myself, where if he's not going to sign anybody big for a long-term deal or make a blockbuster trade with multiple prospects going to a team to bring in a proven player or two, then why do I have confidence that he's going to bring in real talent here? Because mid-tier starting pitching does not fix the problem with this rotation. Mid-tier roster additions when it comes to position players is fine. Like if it's not Cody Bellinger and it's somebody less, like let's say Harrison Bader, something like that, or a guy that's like a mid-tier position player. Like that doesn't excite me. It doesn't do anything. So until he makes that big trade or that big sign-in, there's no faith in him, at least in my opinion. He's done a terrible job this offseason, in my opinion. And it's not just about not giving an offer to Pete Alonso, which, is kind of disrespectful, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Pete Alonso, but it is disrespectful. The guy has been a face to your franchise for a while. Like, at least offer him something. But that's David Stearns. Brandon Nimmo trade made sense. That contract was god-awful. He's a terrible defender. You can talk about his offensive production all you want. It seemed like he does everything in 2 months, and the other 4 or 5 months of the season, he does nothing. So, and with Edwin Diaz, David Stearns fucked that up. in my opinion. So until he actually makes a big trade, I'm not going to believe it. I don't trust him. I don't trust it. So we just have to wait and see. We just have to wait and see and hope for the best. At least for us. Because Met fans are pissed. Okay, so let's talk about this possible trade. Or top rotation arm is probably going to come via the trade market. That's the only way I think the Mets are going to get a big time arm. And I'm talking about top of the line, Freddie Peralta, Tarik Skubal. I know Joe Ryan was kind of, it's like out the window now, but a guy like that. I don't see the Mets giving a long-term deal to Framber Valdez. They should, but I don't think they will. And with Framber Valdez not signing yet, I think he's having a hard time funding a 5 or 6 year deal. And maybe that works in the Mets' favor, where I think they might go 4 years, high AAV. Maybe they feel okay with that. I think they'd rather a 3, but I think they'll be okay with a 4 year deal. So that's the only way I could see it happening, unfortunately. So the only way I think the Mets are going to get a top rotation arm is the trade market. Is something going? Hold on one second, guys. Let me just double check something here. I know people are talking about it, stuff in the chat, so I just want to make sure it ain't, nonsense. Let's just see 1 second, guys. Sorry about that. Alrighty, let's see. Everybody's talking about the prospect, Wandy Segan as well. All right, it's all about that Dominican prospect. All right, so listen. I already said this. I've been quoted saying this many times. If Tarik Skubal is available, and it seems like he is, the New York Mets need to do everything they can to bring him to the New York Mets. I don't want to hear, oh, let's get Freddie Peralta, and that's fine. But if you can get the big guy on the market, get him. I don't want to talk about him being a rental. Everybody thinks you're going to get Freddie Peralta for a bunch of peanuts. You're not. If it takes 2 prospects to get Peralta, why not just go with the 3rd prospect and get the best pitcher in baseball? And he's in your organization the entire year. You get him this offseason. You have time to negotiate with him. And don't tell me that Steve Cohen is going to allow prospects to go in this deal and they're not going to do everything they can to sign him to the biggest contract that he can get. It just doesn't make sense. Why do everybody think they're afraid of doing that? They're not. And yes, I agree. Skubal is a true ace. When you talk about an ace, I think Tarik Skubal. Freddie Peralta, yes, absolutely. The New York Mets need to get Tarik Skubal because he better not end up on another team, because that means the Detroit Tigers were very willing to trade him, and the Mets chickened out once again because of the prospect haul. If you think that you wouldn't make that deal, then I really question why Met fans, do they really want to win? I've said this for a while. I think Met fans rather complain and lose than to be happy and win. I truly believe that. Like, they rather keep all their prospects and win. Of course we would. But it's not logical. It's not that easy. Why is it okay for the Dodgers to do it, the Blue Jays to do it, the Red Sox to do it? Everybody, like the top teams that always make the playoffs and get to World Series and make runs in the playoffs are always the teams that are willing to make the big trades at the deadline or make the trades at the offseason to bring in. We screwed up the Carragher Crochet thing, which the Mets were in on, but they were too afraid to give prospects. Once again, that was a disaster. And you might happen to let that happen again with Tarik Skubal. It doesn't make sense. And everybody say, oh, why don't you just wait until after 2026 when he's a free agent? So you rather him pitch for another team, possibly a National League team that you have to deal with. And now you want 10 to 12 other teams fighting for him in the free agent market and hope that we get him when we know David Stearns is a terrible negotiator? How about trading for him, getting him in the organization where Steve Cohen can look him in the eyes? That's what I want. Tarik Skubal is the guy to get. That's it. And if the Tigers don't trade him, okay, then next best thing is Freddie Peralta. We can not discuss Tarik Skubal, but he's available. Right now, we all assume he's available. So go get him. And we just hope that the New York Mets actually do it. Can Stearns do it? I don't know. I really don't know. Let me just check the comments really quick before we call this stream a day. Braves have been they made some solid moves for sure. And you got to remember, they had a lot of injuries in their rotation and in their lineup last year. So these guys are going to be healthy. You know, they're filling the back end of their bullpen, which is pretty good as well. So everybody wants to keep the prospects. Well, great. Wait until 2030 when hopefully we win. Because 26 through 29 doesn't matter, apparently, to Met fans. But they're the same ones who bitch when the Mets lose. So I don't understand why. Either keep your prospects and don't complain at all. And when they lose and don't do good, don't complain when you still have these prospects here that are ultimately not helping your team and they're just sitting in the minor leagues collecting dust. And every day it goes by losing value. And then you're going to complain. Stop with these prospects. It's Stearns' job to choose which one he believes are going to help this team. Others need to be traded for proven talent in here. This is how good teams actually win. Well, Johnny, sure, let them play. Fine. But David Stearns isn't doing that either. That's the problem. We had 4 guys last year in Mauricio, Acuna, Beatty, and Vientos. 2 of them sat on the bench while the other 2 played. That is not playing them. That is stupid. You're platooning these guys that never can develop to what we hope they would. That's not productive for your team to win games and for their development. There's too many of them to play them all. Who's playing shortstop? Lindor. Who's playing second base? Simeon. Right now, Beatty's third base. You got Soto in right field. Center field and left field still there, and first base. But who's playing first base? Unless you're going to put Vientos there, which is a complete disaster. Like, if you're going to play him, do it. Then it's called a rebuild. That's what that is. If you're playing so many prospects to fill holes, you're rebuilding. And don't tell me you're not. Then you know what? Don't trade for Skubal. Don't sign any free agent pitcher. Throw Tong in the rotation with Sproat and McLean, and then lose 90 games. And then we'll talk about how these prospects are working out. Either go right to the rebuild or get proven talent in here. Because right now, David Stearns is half-assing this roster. He talks about these prospects and there's holes that they can fill, yet we hear they're in on the trade market for pitching and free agents. We're hearing about Cody Bellinger. They don't sign any of them. Don't trade for any of them. Let the prospects fill those holes and play them. I never said I'm against that. But don't bullshit me and tell me that we're trying to be a contender and you're doing what you're doing right now, which is half-assed in an offseason. It doesn't make sense. It does not make any sense. Either you rebuild and be transparent with your fans, because right now you're rebuilding. That's what I see right now. Because you have no rotation. You have Soto in the outfield. You have no first baseman. You got no center fielder. You got no left fielder. You got Nolan McLean, who looks to be really a good pitcher. and you got a bullpen that's okay. I would say somewhat solid. That's it. So you're in rebuild mode until you're not. If you make a trade for a Peralta or a Skubal or Joe Ryan or sign Framber Valdez, then I can see that you're serious about trying to win. Trade some of your prospects for proven talent, and then I can say you're seriously trying to contend. Right now, you're not contending. You've got worse. So, in my opinion, you're rebuilding until you show me you're not. But stop half-assing this offseason like you're telling. Every interview he has, he talks about, oh, yeah, we're trying to. Even Steve Cohen tweeted out, I know Met fans are mad, but we are going to do everything we can to put a playoff team together. No, you're not. Where? The fact that David Stearns has done nothing big at all, and there's guys out there on the free agent market and in the trade market, so it's still time. But don't spill this propaganda bullshit. Again, here's that word again, where David Stearns has to come on all these interviews and, trying to save face just like he did when Diaz signed and Pete Alonso signed. He jumps on an SNY interview and starts talking because he has to save face again. He spills this propaganda, and too many Met fans fall for it. And then when they lose, they complain. That's it. Either David Stearns rebuild and do it officially and be transparent, or go out there and get proven talent and be a contender. Don't tell me you're trying for the playoffs and you're giving this all type of offseason. It makes no sense. Either you're rebuilding or you're trying to contend. You can't do both. Be transparent. If you want these prospects to play, then fill those holes with prospects. Tell us you're doing that, because he tells us he's doing it. Yet we're in on Cody Bellinger. We've talked to Framber Valdez. We're on the trade market for starting pitching. We're hearing about Mason Miller and Nick Pivetta. That's not rebuild. So I don't want to hear those rumors. I don't want to hear you in on these guys if you're rebuilding. Jonah Tong starting a rotation. Brandon Sproat starting a rotation. Nolan McLean be the ace. That's rebuilding. You want Jet Williams to be Carson Benz to be in center field? Great, go ahead. You want to get a stopgap in left field? Great. You want Vientos playing first? Okay, fine. You want one of these other kids to be up here? Great, do it. But stop half-assing these decisions, because what you say, you're doing the exact opposite at this moment. Right now, I see you as a rebuild until you actually do something that tells me you're not, which is signing a big-time player, either Cody Bellinger or Framber Valdez, or make a big trade for multiple guys to bring in talent. Because there's no plan. There's no direct plan. Nobody can say they know what the plan is, because this roster tells me you're half-assing an offseason. There is no way anybody can say that David Stearns has a plan. Are you going all in with these prospects? Doesn't seem like it. Not the way we're hearing reports that you're looking to go get these guys. Didn't we hear the Mets are very serious on Cody Bellinger? Well, if you are, then you're not rebuilding. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. But figure it out. Give us a plan. Well, PJ, his plan has changed by the week. Because early in the offseason, he says we're going to be definitely in on the top end pitching market, and we're going to be in on the top end outfield market. That was his words when they first spoke to him when the offseason started to kick off. And then at the winter meetings, he had the conversation about, we're gonna use these prospects to fill some of the holes on our roster. That is two totally different things within 3 weeks. It makes no sense. The fact that, PJ, I don't even think he knows his plan. His plan's all over the place. Nobody can say, and you can say he has a plan, but do you know his plan? Because his actions and his words within a month have completely changed. So what is it? Is tomorrow he's going to be going after the top guys on the market for outfield and pitching? And then the week after that, when it comes to the new year, he has an epiphany saying, oh, you know what? I'm going to use all the prospects. I'm going to go with the young kids. It's dumb. It's absolutely dumb. Makes no sense. I just don't get it. And I wanted to find something. Hold on, guys. I know there was all right, hold on 1 second, guys. I thought I had the topic of one of these with the Japanese players. I think I had it somewhere. Hold on 1 second, guys. Give me a second. All right. There we go. I knew there was something missing. All right. Cool. I think it was this one. Let's see. That's all right. We'll just talk about it. I thought I had the topic up here, but we didn't. All right. That's cool. Is what it is. All right. So before we end the stream, we're going to talk about Murakami, Okamoto, and Amai. Murakami is December 22nd is when he has to sign with a team or he goes back to Japan. When it comes to Tatsui Imai, January 2nd, and Okamoto is January 4th. So within 2 weeks, all these guys have to sign with a team or they're going back to Japan. We all assume they're all going to sign with a team because I don't see why they would be posted and then head back. Be a little weird. So let's see. Hold on 1 second. Rich says, oh, look, the comments work. Look at that. Totally disagree, Robert. Sign top young free agents. Okay, who is top young free agents? Because there is none. There isn't any. Like, you could talk about it all you want. Top young free agents don't exist. All right, there isn't a lot of Juan. Okay, well, we just did last year. Juan Soto's one of them, right? There isn't a lot of 26-year-olds that are free agents. That don't happen. You're going to find a bunch of 29, 30, 31-year-olds that are free agents. So you can't do that. There is none. Juan Soto was an exception, and the Mets got him. So we did that already. The problem is the Mets aren't using their top young free agents or top young prospects to do anything. Like, there is no top young free agents. It doesn't work like that. Like, find me who's young. Have you seen the free agent market? Most of these guys are between 29 and 33 years old that are on the top of the market. Nobody's under that age. Juan Soto was the exception. That's it. The Mets got that guy. Pete Alonso, over 30 years old. Like, there isn't anybody out there that's young and a free agent. It just does not work like that. These guys end up being 30 years old. So, we'll see. All I know is that Murakami, December 22nd is the last day he can sign with a team. Haven't really heard the Mets in on him, but I'm assuming they probably are. But as cheap as David Stearns is, I don't see him doing that. We heard that the Cubs and the Yankees are the favorites to land Tatsui Imai. The Mets haven't been named, which is another disgrace, but that's David Stearns for you. And Okamoto, I think, is the best fit for the New York Mets. He's a defensive glove, and he's got some power. You put him at first base, you sign Cody Bellinger. Hey, guys, you just filled 2 holes on your roster. Now you got a first baseman. Now you got a left fielder or an outfielder. And now Carson Bench could be a part of this roster, Major League roster, playing either center field or left field. And guess what, guys? We have a roster now. We have a lineup. Holy shit, it's possible. Now you can technically say you're contending. Not this nonsense that you're contending, but all your actions say you're not. Marcus Pete will probably hit 50 bombs. Baltimore's a bandbox. Pop-ups go out. So he probably will. But you know what? Pete Alonso is on a team that is exactly like the New York Mets. He'll have good offensive seasons, and Baltimore has no pitching. But Baltimore might get Framber Valdez. That's a possibility. But Baltimore right now has no pitching. So Pete Alonso is going to do what he does. They're going to act like he's a great player and ultimately never wins and never helps the team win. Because Pete Alonso isn't a franchise-altering player. He's just not. He took this team nowhere, ever. Pete Alonso didn't take this team to a playoffs until Francisco Lindor got to this team. So, and the year that Pete Alonso had his worst year as a New York Met in 2024, it was Lindor with the MVP numbers. And it was Vientos coming alive. It wasn't Pete Alonso. Now, Pete Alonso was really damn good in the playoffs, so he gets credit for that. I'm not afraid to give Pete Alonso credit. But when Pete Alonso gets no blame, it pisses me off. Like, he is not part of the problem. He was. Because you kept them scored together too long and they continue to lose. So, with that said, we'll see what happens for Murakami, who is posted and has to sign by December 22nd. Tatsui Imai is posted up until January 2nd. He has to make a decision then. And Kazumi Okamoto is January 4th. So we'll see if any of those guys are New York Met. Don't get your hopes up for Murakami or Imai for the Mets. I don't think them two guys are going to happen. I think Okamoto could happen. But David Stearns is a scared little boy, and I don't trust him. So we have to wait and see. We're holding our breath. We're hoping can we get a nice little present under the Christmas tree or whatever you celebrate holiday-wise? Can we get a nice little present from Stearns and the New York Mets? Can we get a big trade that's worth talking about? A big sign-in that's worth talking about? Not a Devin Williams, not a Luke Weaver. Can we get a big trade or a big sign-in before the holiday season so we can have something to talk about and get a nice little present for the holidays? How about that? How about that? But I still believe that this Mets-Padres trade, it started to get quiet after the weekend. We've heard nothing after the weekend. I do think that's a good sign, because when you don't hear anything after you started to hear a lot, and then you hear basically nothing, guess what? Guess what? I think it's going to happen. I can't tell you the players. I don't know if it's just going to be Mason Miller. It might be Mason Miller with Xander Bogaerts. It might be Mason Miller with Nick Pivetta. It might be Mason Miller it might be Nick Pivetta and maybe one of the bullpen arms, the good bullpen arms that are not named Mason Miller. That's a possibility as well. But I do think something's going to happen with the Mets and the Padres. No, it's not going to be Lindor. No, it's not going to be Tatis. I'd be shocked if it is. And who the hell said that? Truman said I'm an Orthodox Kwanzaa. Listen, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, I don't care what you celebrate. Enjoy it. Right? I don't know if anybody knows what Kwanzaa is, but again, Kwanzaa is an African holiday during these holiday seasons. I remember because I had an elementary school teacher that celebrate Kwanzaa. I did. It is what it is. It's cool. I don't discriminate. It is what it is. You celebrate something, that's fine. I don't care. Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, I can't think of anything else right now, but if you do, celebrate it. Good for you. Here's what I do know. If you're on this channel, you're a Mets fan. So you're cool in my book. So if we don't talk, there's going to be more streams. I can tell you that right now. There's going to be a ton of streams. If there's any breaking news, I'll be live. I promise you that. So with that said, guys, if you can't tune in up until the holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, enjoy, be safe, guys. As always, Met fans, let's go Mets. Thank you for tuning into the Mets Hot Stove Show right here on the channel and on X. And if you were on Chris's channel, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. He unfortunately got stuck in terrible traffic in D.C. and could not join the show, but I know he wished he was here disagreeing with me. So with that said, guys, have a great night. Let's go Mets, and I'll see you next time on the Hot Stove Show, guys. Have a great night.
Meet the Mets, step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your